Alright, we're going to start off the morning midterm today by going over the design view. First, we're going to look at the validators that you had to create. On the text box, you needed to have a compare validator that was dynamic, had the appropriate error message, read. The operator needed to be set to greater than. The type was integer and the value to compare was 0. That basically just made anything you put in the text box, it had to be an integer greater than 0. The next validator was a required field validator set for the text box with control to validate there. Display was dynamic, the proper error message set focus on error. The last validator is a required field validator on RBL tip. Set to validate to RBL tip, dynamic, proper error message, set focus on error. You then needed to put in a validation summary that was just 4-color red, and then the validation group on all of those either needed to be set to the exact same thing or all left blank. The first method that we're going to get into today is the selected index change method by double clicking on the RBL right here. That takes us to RBL tip selected index change. The if statement inside of here allows you to view and hide the label and the checkbox that were associated with it. So this label above and the checkbox right here. In order to do that, you just check to see if the selected index was 0 or yes on the RBL, and if it was, then you made it visible, else you made it false. While we're up here, we're going to take a look at the page load. The focus was set to the text box, and that just, whenever the page loads, it puts the cursor inside of the text box. The next method we're going to look at is the button click for pay tab. And here we have the variables that I created. The first variable is int num drinks, and that's just going to store the integer from the text box. The next variable is dec drink price. That's where you're going to store the drink prices out of the checkbox list. String bars is going to be the item.text values out of the checkbox list. Dec total bill is where you're going to do your total calculation, or dec drink price times int num drinks. And dec tip is equal to 5, and you add that on if the RBL tip selected index is on yes and the checkbox is checked. So first off, we're going to make the label output visible equal to true, so everything else that you do down here is visible in the label. Alright, so we're going to do the for loop. It's going to check the checkbox list for items. If an item is selected in the checkbox list, then we're going to store the value of that item inside of dec drink price, and we're going to accumulate that because each time it goes through and an item is selected, it's just going to add that price onto the next. The same is true for string bars. You just take cbl bars.items square brackets I dot text, and that'll put the name of the bar into the string with a comma and a space after it so you can do a list. Here we do the calculation for dec total bill. You take dec drink price and multiply it by int num drinks. And here we are going to start the static part of the label. This part of the label is never going to change. Even if you tip or you don't tip, it's always going to say thanks for stopping by and then the name of the bars. Remember, when you're doing label outputs, you need to accumulate it so that this part of the label adds this part afterwards. Page breaks are set up as follows. The if statement right here checks to make sure that RBL tip is selected on yes, and if the tip checkbox is checked, then the $5 is added on to the total bill, and the label output adds in thanks for tipping your bartenders tonight. If checkbox is not checked, then this does not get added onto the bill, and that will not appear in the label. This part of the label is always going to be the same, so it's going to read the total for the night. and that is outside of if statements because it is static. The last two if statements down here, check to make sure that if you have selected yes on the RBL tip, that if the checkbox is not checked, the label output will read please accept the tip conditions or select no, so you can proceed to get your total for the night. This label output.text is not accumulated because you want it to read just this line if these conditions are met. And then if no bars are selected in the checkbox list or selected index equals -1, we want to make the label read make sure you have selected at least one bar to go to. The reason that we do these two if statements is because you can't put required field validators on checkboxes or checkbox lists. So this is just a way of coding in validation that won't let the page run all the way. The reason we do the else statement here for cleanup is because if these two things run, the if or the else if, you want to make sure that the values that you've already put into the text box, the RBL, the checkbox list, are saved, and you won't have to input them again. So we do an else statement that'll run no matter what if these two conditions are not met. And you clear the text box by setting it equal to blank quotes. The RBL and checkbox list are reset by doing selected index equals -1. And then to uncheck the checkbox, you do cbtip.checked equals false. And then to hide the checkbox and the label that is associated with the checkbox, you just do .visible equals false. I hope this video has been helpful for you guys and you have a better understanding of how to complete the midterm for the AM section. If you have any questions, please contact myself or Dr. Mata or come to a help session and ask a question. Thanks. Have a good day.